Tonight, Niue welcomes delegates for the Pacific Media Summit, 50th anniversary website launched, and Niue police undergo training. Good evening and welcome to our BCN News Bulletin. I'm Mersa Takala. A special whakalo for atu to our viewers from across the region, thanks to our partners at Pacifica TV. Leading our bulletin tonight, the village of Avasele hosted the delegates of the 7th Pacific Media Summit at the official opening ceremony on Monday afternoon. About 80 representatives from the various regional media fraternity are on the island for the week-long summit with this year's theme, Charting a Resilient Future, Navigating Media Freedom, Artificial Intelligence, and Geopolitical Interests. Chief guest at the event, Speaker of the Niue Legislative Assembly, Honorable Hima Douglas, a former broadcaster, shared some good memories during his time in the media.
My involvement with the media goes back a long way, to a time and a long time ago, another generation, as it were. But as Trevor has reminded you, this is the second gathering of media people on our little island. The first was almost to the day, in fact, 32 years ago, the 12th to the 15th of September, 1992, when the newly formed Broadcasting Corporation of Niue, BCN at the time, hosted back-to-back the Pacific Islands Broadcasting Association General Assembly and the Pina AGM, and it was a great time. It brought back many memories for me.
Chairman of the Pacific Islands News Association Board, Cora No, thanked Niue for hosting the 7th Pacific Media Summit despite challenges leading up to the event. No also acknowledged the work and effort of Niue's star founder and owner, Michael Jackson.
So many of us were skeptical that Niue would pull it off. Flights are not regular. Would there be enough accommodation? It's too far for most of us. Those were some of the sentiments that were expressed. There was even a suggestion that we propose a plan B in the event that Niue wouldn't host.
Similar sentiments were shared by Prime Minister Honorable Dalton Tangilangi, who officially opened the summit on Monday evening.
It brings to that life that what is required here is so many times that small islands like Niue are neglected from hosting some of the meetings within the region. And this is something that I advocate for. It's part of that regionalism that we always talk about, that everyone should be included. And I thank you for choosing to be here.
Broadcasting Corporation of Niue General Manager Trevor Siakia also took the opportunity to thank everyone for attending. Delegates were all decked out in their beautiful attire and were treated to a warm welcome by the Avasele community with a spectacular feast and entertainment. The summit is the largest meeting of news and media practitioners and news outlets in the Pacific and hosted by the Niue Media Association in collaboration with the Government of Niue and the Pacific Islands News Association. The Pacific Islands News Association, or Pina, held their general conference and annual general meeting this morning at Okimai in Tamakau, Tonga, where veteran Tongan journalist Kalafi Moala has been elected as the new Pina president, replacing Cora No of Papua New Guinea, with Leilani Reklai from Palau as the new Pina vice president. BCN's head of news, Esther Pavihi, is now part of the new Pina board as a television representative alongside other elected members, including Fred Wesley of Fiji, Neville Choi from PNG, Robert Ironga from the Solomon Islands, and Catalina Tohi from Tonga. The next Pacific Media Summit is expected to be held in 2026 in Fiji, should their bid be successful. Niue Prime Minister Honorable Dalton Tangilangi yesterday launched the new Vision Pacifica Media Awards facilitated by the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, or SPREP. Tangilangi said Niue is the perfect setting to launch this media award against a beautiful backdrop of his island home that sits within our Pacific Ocean that we actively work towards preserving. SPRAP has been running a media award program since 2009 to acknowledge environmental news content. The award is focused on pollution, mostly plastic pollution and waste. The award will recognize environmental news content reporting across the Pacific Island region, with this year's theme Cleaner Pacific, from television, radio production, online platforms, print media, and from tertiary students studying journalism. Submissions are now open for Pacific Island journalists in any of the SPRAP Island member countries or territories from the 23rd of September 2024 until April 2025. Over the weekend, pre-summit workshops were also held as a lead-up to the 7th Pacific Media Summit that began this week on Tuesday. One of the sessions was on press freedom, code of conduct, data mining, and open source investigations, facilitated by the United Nations Anti-Corruption Consultant, held at the Public Service Building Conference Room. BCN News had an opportunity to speak with veteran Tongan journalist Kalafi Moala, who started the first independent newspaper in Tonga. He spoke on some key areas of learning from the session.
We've got the team, the people that are part of this workshop is actually they're the journalists. It's part of our network from the Solomon Islands and Tonga, from Fiji. And so the Kiribati representative is not here, but it's been very good.
Moala looks forward to more discussions during the summit, especially on the freedom of the press.
One of the discussions, of course, that we had is the importance of really telling our stories. Usually it's others coming to the Pacific and telling our stories from their own perspective and their own view. And what we're emphasizing is it's so important for us to be able to tell our stories.
Other pre-summit workshop included Women in Media, facilitated by Family Pacific, Strengthening National Media Association, facilitated by Acting CEO of the Fiji Sun, Rossi Ndoviverata, and Neville Choi, President of the Media Council, Papua New Guinea. Also, Reporting on Public Finance Management was facilitated by the United Nations Development Programme, and Emerging Environment and Climate Trends in the Pacific, facilitated by Internews. The first ever 2023 Pacific Media Freedom Index report, titled For Us, By Us, About Us, was launched on Monday at the 7th Pacific Media Summit here in Niue. BCN News spoke with the Pacific Freedom Forum chair, Robert Ironga, who shared more about the report's findings. The 2023 Pacific Media Freedom Index report was compiled from a survey from 73 journalists, media executives, and owners from across the region. Pacific Freedom Forum chair, Robert Ironga, shared more about the role of the forum.
The Pacific Freedom Forum, as I was saying, is an NGO that defends the freedom of expression on Article 19. And we rotate the chairmanship around Polynesia, Micronesia, Melanesia, 2 years per region.
Robert, who founded the Solomon's Business magazine in 2015, said the report is significant because it was done for Pacific Islanders for Pacific Islanders.
And it gives you the health of the freedom in terms of media freedom in the Pacific. So that's what the report is all about. It covers 14 countries, and we have spoken to 73 respondents. So their views are captured here.
According to the report's findings, a financial constraint was the biggest threat to Pacific media freedoms and cultural sensitivity.
So the research found that in all Pacific Island countries, there is a threat to a lot of media houses because they don't have the finances. Yeah. So once you don't have the finances, you don't have the ability to move around or do a story. And that itself, it limits the freedom of expression, the freedom of people you want to reach.
Robert said one of the key areas of discussions he is looking forward to during the Pacific Media Summit is on the issue of climate change in the Pacific and how to report on it, as the media's voice is important when it comes to these issues. And staying with the Pacific Media Summit, BCN News had an opportunity to speak with renowned Fiji journalist Anish Chand on Monday and what he most looks forward to during the summit. With a career spanning over 31 years in radio, television, and print, Anish Chand is one of 80 media delegates converging on the island this week for the 7th Pacific Media Summit. Chand is on the Rock for the second time, having visited Niue back in 2008.
Coming here to Niue, this is my second trip. I was here in 2008 at the South Pacific Forum at a time when Fiji was out of the forum, and that meeting was important for Fiji to make a presentation here to the Pacific leaders that why Fiji should be back in the forum. So from 2008 now 2024, not much has changed. I see the laid out lifestyle continues here. You are not disturbed. There is no criminality here. You can leave your cars open at night and everything. And I've just fallen in love with this place, my second love after Cook Islands in the region.
He was part of the pre-summit workshop on press freedom, code of conduct, data mining, and open source investigation.
Insofar as the session here this morning, we have gathered here under the sponsorship of the UNODC and talking about code of conduct of media organizations. We are talking about integrity. We are talking about ethics, and the most of it we are talking about corruption, how the media can work towards highlighting corrupt practices in governments. When I say governments, it's the governments all across the Pacific. We know we have a robust corruption laws in Fiji. Tonga has just got this going, but I don't feel there's enough powers given to the media in any other country in the Pacific so that they can openly go up to their government and say, hey, open your books, let me see how you're spending this money. So this is what we are discussing here, and we hope we can have some positive outcomes.
Chand also shared on what he's looking forward to during the summit, especially on the 2023 Pacific Media Freedom Index report.
I wanted to have a look at the Media Perception Index report that was launched today. That report is important for Fiji because we have just come out of a general election in 2022. As we know, before that, the Fiji media was restrained. We could not walk freely. And after the 2022 election, from December 2022, given the freedom we have got, I just wanted to see how Fijian journalists have responded to the report and what's in that report, whether we have made any headway, whether Fiji has improved in its ranking compared to previously. And I'm just interested to find out whether Fiji remains at the top of the chain when the region looks at the best practices in journalism. It's Fiji up there that we should be looking at.
And media delegates from across the Pacific region were welcomed last Friday afternoon at the Hannan International Airport. Months of preparations have been underway leading up to the 7th Pacific Media Summit, with a group of volunteers designated to be drivers and organizers during the week-long event. The government of Niue has unveiled its new website on www.gov.nu in celebration of 50 years of Niue's self-governance. According to a government release, the website is designed to showcase the island nation's history and culture and be a one-stop online portal for information about the government. Niue achieved self-governance from New Zealand in 1974. Since then, Niue has continued to develop its diplomatic relations and recently enacted the first amendments to their constitution since 1992, establishing Premier Tangilangi as Niue's first prime minister. Tangilangi says Niue's new website is another crucial link in the country's increasing connection abroad with both the Niuean diaspora as well as with international partners. Niue will be celebrating its 50th anniversary of self-governance on 19th October 2024. The Niue Police Department has been undergoing a 2-week police safety program training with the Royal New Zealand Police College on the island. Senior Sergeant of the Royal New Zealand Police College, Catherine Rains, said the training consisted of defensive tactics using handcuffs, pepper sprays, and batons.
We're here teaching defensive tactics using handcuffs, baton, OC spray, and some empty hand techniques. And we're also teaching our use of force framework and legislation and use of force reporting, along with some tactical communication.
Niue Police Officer Stewart Siakifilo says he's learnt a lot during the 2 weeks training.
It's more of a refresher for me. Some of the stuff that I've been learning, it's the things that we've been taught before from previous deployment mission.
Niue Police Chief Timothy Wilson has thanked the Royal New Zealand Police with a donation of kits to the department.
Part of this program is they get all new kits, so they'll get new batons, new handcuffs, all new gear, which is something that we really, really need. So we're grateful for the New Zealand Police.
7 Niue police officers will complete the training tomorrow with certificates. A 3-day workshop was held last week by the Now Trust with their partners, Conservation International. Niue Ocean-wide Trust Project Manager Brendan Pasisi said they are finalizing their operations manual and putting together a spending plan of what the trust will fund.
The workshop is really our what we're calling the Niue and Ocean-wide Trust casting off workshop, and it's really about coming together with our partners, the Blue Nature Alliance and Conservation International, the new service provider, Perpetual Guardian, and our legal advisors, along with the trustees of the trust, the local trustees, and other key stakeholders.
The workshop is focused on further developing the initiatives on the ground and further progressing the objectives of the work they do and helping to move forward their global ocean leadership through the Niue Ocean-wide Trust and Ocean Conservation Commitment. With over 20 years of experience in project design, program development and grant making, Chris Stone of Blue Nature Alliance shares more about the training and its significance.
Do large-scale ocean conservation efforts, and of course Niue has been a partner for I think 3 years now with the Blue Nature Alliance. We've been admiring your Niue's ambition with the creation of the Moana Mahu large-scale MPA. And we're here to really help Niue think through and set up the structures that are needed to ensure that there will be sort of long-term financial resources to support Niue's ocean conservation work.
Pasisi also shared further on the plans that the trust will look to fund.
Try and finalize the operations manual, putting together the spending plan.
The Blue Nature Alliance is a global partnership that aims to catalyze the conservation of 18 million square kilometers of ocean in 5 years and is a collaboration led by the Conservation International. The government of Niue last week launched 3 key documents strengthening Niue's ability to gain support to fight climate change. The documents are Niue's Strategic Framework and Country Program, Niue's Readiness Needs Assessment, as well as Niue's Standard Operating Procedure that was authored by the Greenwork team. The documents were launched during the Pacific Regional Readiness Cohort Workshop at Matavai. Niue's Deputy Secretary to Government, Gayleen Tasmania, said the document is a culmination of contributions from different stakeholders, donors, and development partners, and voices from the community. The Niue Strategic Framework and Country Program will guide and inform stakeholders on the country's priorities and needs to realize climate change ambitions. The Niue's Readiness Needs Assessment will inform funding for the next 4 years from 2024 to 2027. Niue is the world's 177th largest emitter with a total share of 0 greenhouse gas emissions, yet like all Pacific Island nations, Niue is amongst the most vulnerable in the world to the impacts of climate change. Rising sea level poses a massive threat to Niue's underground freshwater supplies. The Pacific Regional Readiness Cohort Workshop had representatives from across 8 Pacific countries, including the Maldives. The Pro-Vice Chancellor for the Faculty of Pacific Studies at the University of Auckland, Professor Jemima Tiatia Siao, is back on the island to present key findings from her research project on the link of climate change and mental well-being. The research project was focused on Niue, Cook Islands, and New Zealand. One of the key objectives was to explore the links between climate change, mental health and well-being, and the impacts of climate change upon overall health outcomes for Pacific peoples.
So this is a Health Research Council of New Zealand funded study, and it just looks at the link between climate change and mental health and well-being, particularly for the people of Niue, Cook Islands and Pacific peoples in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
When it comes to key findings for Niue, the indigenous connection to land meant that the impacts of climate change can be experienced as losing kin through grief and mourning.
It's just to garner or gather the voices of our Pasifika peoples, because usually in that field, a lot of it is by non-Pacific and not even in the global south or the Pacific. So it was important to me that our voices are elevated and our stories are exposed.
Overall, the mental health sector across the Pacific region needs improvement and more investment, and it's important that the people are included in this very important conversation.
So part of it was to explore terminology that is out there, you know, in the scientific world. But we wanted it to come from our own lived experiences and our own vocabulary or language, right? So, and an example of that is whakaatukehe, which explains mourning, and that's how the people of Niue had described what climate change and mental health is, and it's probably so much deeper than that one term. So that's what I mean. It's just an example for our own stories to be visible, on not just across the region but globally as well.
The research, which began in 2021, was funded by the Health Research Council of New Zealand. And that's our news bulletin for tonight. Make sure to join the BCN News crew this Saturday at the Alofi North Village Show Day. And we wish all of our media delegates from across the Pacific safe travels back tomorrow. We hope you've enjoyed your stay throughout the week here at The Rock. Until then, good evening.